Hey, it's the Cheap Bonding with Board Games and RPGs, and I'm calling this the Maze Rats Live Show Cliff Notes. In these Cliff Notes of the different episodes, so you can get up and running without having to watch full-hour shows, I'm going to cover the first, second, third episode. So episode 1, I actually create the character right out of the book, Chadwick Dunlow. He's a usurer. He's ejected from the city he's living in. He's whipped. He's stripped of his money. But he still has his rapier and his fancy clothes and his kind of shady attitude. They eject him out the same gate that the river runs down with all the sewage. He runs across a dead wild animal, I believe a deer, and he spots a bear snake, which is like a giant anaconda snake, bigger than an anaconda. Looks like a bear's head almost on it. He elects not to fight. In Maze Rats, you can die quickly, especially when you're a brand new character. He continues wandering down that river, and he comes to a city. Now, in this game, while I'm playing live, I'll occasionally use some magic tokens that I made from cutting up magic cards. I use the Mythic emulator to answer yes/no questions and give me random events and to help me out with the solo game. But in this case, he comes across a city. It's a city near the ocean. It's a port city. It turns out it's a diplomatic city. Think the UN building in New York City. But this whole town is like just that. It's all these different factions from all over this mythical world, which we don't know yet, that come together here, and there's all kinds of high-level diplomatic intrigue. That's all we know. Now, we do know there's a fire that's going on. It's distracted the gatekeepers or the guards, and old Chadwick's able to slip in. He heads to a tavern called the Bleak Moon. There are naming charts in here, naming graphs you can roll on, naming graphs. Naming tables. Tables is the word I was looking at. And it comes up with the Bleak Moon. And it's owned by a motherly woman named Adelaide, also all created from Maze Rats, who takes pity, gives him a bottom shelf ale, and offers him room and board if he'll do work for her. It turns out the Bleak Moon isn't just like room and board and food and drink. They also are a securer of important things. And something she's been securing has been stolen or taken. Stolen. And she wants him, Chadwick, to recover it. And if he gets it, not only will he cover his room and board, she'll send him a few coins his way. Trying to figure out what this item is, I come up with that it's a key, and it's a numbered key, and I just roll randomly and get numbered key 37. We don't know what this thing does, but Adelaide knows that it is at a curiosity shop in town, and he needs to go get it. And episode 1 is over. At the end of each episode, I will usually do experience for the characters. They can level up. They can gain some basic skills in the Maze Rat system. But we head to episode number 2. So as I move into episode 2, I do a little catch up and then I explain a little bit more of the mythic system. I think you've got it now. It's a percentile die roll system that gives me yes or no's or extreme yeses or extreme no's. And then there's all kinds of subject noun random events or things that can spur on information or details. I had 2 folks that were watching a lot and even talking to me about doing live shows with Maze Rats, and one of them is Never Fear 1911 is his screen name. And on the very first episode, off to the side in the comments, he had created a character named Finn the Peddler, also using the Maze Rats system. Now, I get a little bit better this time. As I read their comments, I will bring them up on screen. I've done many live shows before, and why I wasn't doing that in episode 1, who knows, but I do it here. But we get to meet Finn the Peddler. It's as if he's been employed by Adelaide at the Bleak Moon because Chadwick's like, well, I need a little help. And in comes Finn the Peddler, played by Never Fear 1911. Off we go to the curiosity shop somewhere in this town. The town will later be named Windridge. Now in this episode I mess it up and there's a name that comes in, but I'm going to kind of just consider that as maybe like a borough of this town because the town is later named Windridge. Finn the Peddler and Chadwick go in. Inside is Stratford and Zora, their husband and wife. They run this curiosity shop, and all along the walls are mounted boar's heads with 3 tusks and just weird creatures. And I decide that Chadwick's just going to go for threats. He knocks something off the floor, he pulls his dagger, he grabs Stratford around the back of the neck, puts his knife under his chin, and says basically, give me key 37 or you die right here. Stratford stays calm as a cucumber. Meanwhile, I tell Finn, watch the door. We do a couple random events to see if anybody comes, just to throw some chaos into the situation. Stratford tells Zora, hey, go get key 37. I'm thinking, cool, this is working great. She comes out, hands over the key, and on top of it, and I forget how we get into this off the top of my head, I think I see all these things here, and I mention the bear snake, and that I will go get it because he seems like a connoisseur of weird creatures, and he says that would be awesome. And I'll even pay you a little something if you bring me the head of a bear snake. So he's wheeling and dealing even while the threats, you can tell he's been around. He's more than just a shop owner, owner of a curiosity shop. There's some underground kind of dark, whether it's seediness or whatever. He's a procurer of things. And you get that feeling and it comes right out of this system. And it's awesome. And we now know what we're going to be doing in episode 3. Before we leave, he gives us a snake net, kind of a nice little deal. We go back to the Bleak Moon, provide her the key. There's some discussion that Adelaide was going to win either way. If we get the key, she gets it back. If we don't, the belief was that she was going to blame us for its original theft to get her out from underneath whoever she was storing it for. But we came through. And Chadwick even kind of felt he understood what was at play. Feeling like we need a little more help to go hunt the bear snake, we end up grabbing Lord Vorp, who was played by Vorpal who was the other individual that was in the comments all the way from episode 1. He created a character, and he will bring Lord Vorp into episode 3 because we need some more muscle. We will also be getting a goat, but I'll explain more about that in a second. Now, at the start of episode 3, I tried a new mic, and it was doubling a little bit. Now, I'm going to try to go back and clip that. And off we go. We get a goat and a hemp rope, and the plan is we're going back to where I saw the bear snake. And we're going to lay out the bear snake net. We're going to stake down the goat, who will later be named Glad. We'll find out why. We're going to run the net rope up over a branch. And when the bear snake comes in to get the goat Glad, all 3 of us will pull our net and we will trap the snake. No thinking of the goat was done, except by Lord Vorp, who was also apparently a goat fan. Now, here's what also goes on in this episode. Vorpal was a little bored. He's more of a miniatures gamer, and this is more of a story type build, a story type stream of consciousness, and he was a little bored. And as we're getting ready to spring the trap, he suddenly states in the comments that he wants to go set the goat free. Now, I think maybe his character has its own motivation. Maybe he's a vegan. Who knows? But I'm like, are you sure you want to do that? He says, yes. So he rushes into this net and starts to let the goat go. But it turns out Glad the goat, he swats it on the rump to make it run away. The goat didn't take kindly to it. We rolled that up randomly. It turns around and it headbutts Lord Vorp. And then in comes the snake. And the snake, we find out, a bear snake likes to do a hit with its head, almost like it's a whip, or it's going to stun you, and then it's going to constrict you. And we roll randomly, and it hits Lord Vorp and stuns him. And it goes into the net. We trigger it, and the net can't quite hold the weight of the goat, the snake, and Lord Vorp, and it starts to tear. In a panic, I think Finn uses his dex and drops the net, and we rush over to see if we can just kill this bear snake. It's all commingled together. Meanwhile, Lord Vorp just starts cutting the net in order to free himself. He's not trying to stab the snake, which I thought he would do. He's just, oh, I'm going to cut the net, see if I can get out. Never Fear 1911 and I are both like, what are you doing? But I keep saying, hey, if you're role-playing your character, great. More on that in a bit. As we rush up, my character comes in supposedly to try to stab the snake, but I miss, and I stab Lord Vorp. Now, there's some belief it was intentional, but I just do a minor little damage to his arm or his shoulder. Meanwhile, Finn the Peddler comes in and gets a crit. He comes in and just boom, and he just critically, we did roll for advantage, use 6-sided die, 2 of them, we add in a 3rd one for the advantage, and with his attack bonus, I can't remember, maybe he just got a flat out 12. I think he did. Clean 12, and it's a critical hit, you double the damage. For the game purposes, it's an instant kill. The snake is dead, we take its head. Then what happens is, Vorpal Bite says, nah, I was just bored. And we're both kind of like, Vorp, it's fine if your character, Lord Vorp, who was kind of interesting, we figured he was like a down on his luck rich guy or something. Whatever his reasons are, if you're role-playing those reasons, it's great. But if you're just bored and you're going to let the goat go. So it was a little odd. If you watch this episode, you'll get to see how his actions, which turns out weren't in character, which we'll talk later, made this episode one of my favorites. Because we're all about ready to pull this trap and then everything starts to come unraveled because Lord Vorp wants to save the goat, who becomes named Glad because he's like a gladiator. One of the viewers says he's a gladiator, call him Gladiator. And boom, Glad is born. Glad is still with us today. He's like our mascot, our dog that comes around on a 10-foot hemp rope leash. But then we deal with Vorpal Bite and saying, you know, you can't just jack with everybody here by just doing it because you're bored. It's got to be what your character wants to do, which is interesting. If you want to see how that's handled, you see a little bit of that here, and it'll come up in episode 4. But all we're doing is episodes 1, 2, and 3. This has been your Cliff Notes on episodes 1, 2, and 3 of my live Maze Rats. You get a little bit of feeling, you kind of get where we're at, and you even understand where the players are at here. Not to mention, Never Fear 1911, I believe at this point in time, he's now hooked. He is hooked. I am really liking this Finn the Peddler. I almost feel like he's some kind of assassin or something, the way he came up and does this critical kill on the snake. But you'll get to see more of that in the future. But this episode really sucked me in. It got Never Fear in, but not Vorpal Bite. He did not like this. But he's around for one more episode. We will end this here. This has been a synopsis of episodes 1, 2, and 3 of my live Maze Rats campaign. See you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.